This is Kim Breeden at Minnesota Online High School. In this video, I'm going to introduce you to some key concepts used in geometry. Geometry is all about shapes, but before we can really talk about shapes, we need to start with those initial building blocks. So the first thing we'll have is a point. So a point doesn't really have size, it's just a location. Typically when we do make a point, as a drawing, we are going to use a little dot. And then we name that with a single capital letter. So for example, I can make my point and I'm going to call that point A. I can draw another point and call it C. We can put multiple points together, and if those points are in a row, that would be a line. So a line in geometry is a straight thing. It doesn't have any width, but it extends forever in two opposite directions. Okay, so that is what a line looks like. There's another one, NO. Now, when we read that, we call that line NO. Key thing about lines is the order of those points doesn't matter. I can also call that ON. And N and O are both points on the lines. Notice how there's not little dots there, but whenever you see a capital letter, that means there's a point. So there's a point N and O. In fact, on a line, there are an infinite number of points. So even though there's not other points drawn there, I know that there must be other points on this line. So for example, I'm going to draw another point on there, a point A. So when I name that line, I'm going to name it with any two letters. I can call it line NO, line ON. I can use a symbol above it if I'm writing it on paper. When we type, we often have to write out the word line, but I can use any 2 points. So I could also call this line NA. I could call this line AO. I could switch that order. What I cannot do is name my line with 3 or more letters. A line is simply named with 2 points or 2 capital letters. So a line goes forever, but we can have a part of a line, and we call that a segment. So a segment is a part of a line which has 2 endpoints. We read that as segment. This can be called segment BE or segment EB. The order doesn't matter as long as we use the beginning and end of those lines, of that segment. For symbols, there'll just be a straight bar above it. And we won't always draw those dots. So here we have BE as our segment. I could have a segment JK where I just wrote the letters at the beginning and the end. I didn't actually make the little dots, and that's okay too. There are still points J and K at the beginning and end. There are also other points in between that don't have names. Our next vocabulary term is ray. So a ray continues forever in one direction. The starting point, we actually call an endpoint, which I know sounds kind of weird, but that's where our ray starts and it continues going forever from there. When we name that ray, our starting point always needs to be first. So this is ray AB. Okay, it is not the same thing as ray BA. The order matters. Just like on a line, there's actually an infinite number of points. So perhaps I have a ray where I start at P and then I have some other points on here as well. Now, when I want to name that ray, I need to always use P as my starting point. But then I can use any other letter. So I could call that ray PT. I could call that ray PA or ray PS. Lines can intersect. When they intersect, that means they cross and they meet at a point. So again, even though there isn't the point drawn on here, when two lines meet, I know that there's a point there. So I'm going to name that point point E. But again, if I were naming these figures, when I name those line segments or those rays or lines, I would only use two letters for each. Let's try a couple examples. I'm going to use this drawing. And the first thing I want to do is name a line. So I have a line across the top. I can see there's arrows that go in both directions. So my line is GH. I can use that symbol above it, or I could simply write out the word line in front. Now remember, the order doesn't matter. So I could also call that line HG. The second one says name two segments that have G as an endpoint. Okay, so here is G. Now you'll notice there are a lot of lines or rays that go from G, but I can also focus on the segments. So even though GH was a line, I can also have segment GH. That means I'm starting at G and going through H. I'm not going forever. Or I could say segment GJ. Key thing is I need two letters. G must be one of them. Same picture. Here I'm looking for another name for ray GK. So that is the ray that starts at G and it's going forever in the direction of K. We name a ray always with two capital letters. The first one needs to be where we start. So I'm still going to have to use G first, but then I'm pointing my direction. Well, I go through J. So ray GJ. And finally, name 3 points. Well, a single capital letter is a point. So J is a point, L is a point, K is a point. There's many others. Now, in many of our assignments, you're going to be using an online tool called GeoGebra to explore geometry. A couple key things about it. It's okay to create a free account. That allows you to save your work. So in case you want to go back, if you get stopped in the middle, it's okay if you don't create an account. Just make sure you sign in with your first and last name so I can identify your work. And after you work in GeoGebra, it saves your answers for you. But you always need to submit something in Blackboard so that I know you are completed. That's basically what tells me to go grade the assignment. GeoGebra allows you to manipulate figures and learn by experimenting. So in here on the left, you'll see different slides that you need to participate on. You can also get them by clicking here in the middle. And you'll notice they'll have a mix of some reading to do. And then there'll be directions for how you manipulate the applet. So here, we can go ahead and we're going to measure. So following the directions, click on the measuring tool. Well, what we want to do is measure a segment. So the 8th box over is our measuring tool. Right now, it looks like an angle, but we want to measure the distance. So we're going to measure the distance, and then we're going to click on there, and notice it's going to give us the length of that segment. So it says right now it is 7.75. And one thing you'll notice is that then I can move my points and it will change the length or the distance. This will help us find patterns. Okay, there'll be some questions in GeoGebra where you can type directly in and answer. And again, you should be able to manipulate the figures as you do so. And often you will use GeoGebra to both discover and learn things and show what you have learned. I encourage you to reach out with questions. In the course, find the Contact Your Teacher page, and all my information is there. There are times when you can drop in to meet with me without an appointment, both in my office hours and the Academic Success Center called the Ask, or there's a link where you can book a time to meet with me. I'm here to support you as you learn geometry, so please connect and let me know how I can help. Have an awesome day.